All right, we want to welcome the Facebook Live people to Boost Biz Ed. We are here in Westminster with the crowd of people that we have here in the room to hear Jennifer Olson about how to really take your business to the next level. So I'm going to introduce her in a second, but since you didn't make it, you don't get to network with the people in the room, so we encourage you to make it to this one or one near you, because there are 5 locations around, but Boost Biz Ed is all about networking and education. So hopefully, whether you're here in person or online, you'll be able to take something from today's presentation that you can take action on today. We'll go pick a couple people from the room to share what they're going to do at the end of the presentation, but we encourage you guys to post online. You will see me posting online during the presentation as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce Jennifer Olson of DVLP Solutions, presenting Navigating the Valley of Death, which is not at all what you think it is, which we've already covered in the room. So Jennifer is the president of DVLP Solutions, and she works with conscious companies, business professionals, and entrepreneurs who are looking to do things differently to create extraordinary results. With over 25 years of experience in leadership and business development, she loves providing customized programs that specifically address the areas of greatest needs for her clients. As a certified coach and an energy leadership master practitioner, a certified instructor in the art of feminine presence, and a core dynamic specialist in training, she has a unique blend of credentials that enable her and her team to weave proven business strategies with non-traditional physical, energetic, and values-based leadership that help promote business owners and leaders thrive, exceeding their own expectations, goals, and profits. So with rousing applause, let's welcome Jennifer Olson to the front of the room.
Good morning. Thank you all. I'm just going to see if I can get out of this for a second. All right. That's not helpful. All right. Perfect. Good morning. Thanks all for being here. I'm going to start off just telling you a little bit that wasn't on the prolific script that I gave for the day, to tell you just a little bit about me, and then I want to get to know just a little bit about you guys so I can really customize the information that I'm going to share today. So, this is me and my family. So I help leaders, social entrepreneurs, and social impact companies really take themselves, their teams, and their businesses to the next level. Specifically, I help leaders become CEOs, same is true with entrepreneurs, and I help them too in terms of really growing their business, whether they're just starting out and really want to figure out how to grow their profits quickly, fast, or if they're a larger company and are really trying to navigate some of the challenges that come with it, okay? So that's what I do through my company. I'm also a mom and I'm a wife. I have 2 girls who are actually much older than this picture. They're 10 and 11 now. I teach soccer, or coach soccer, kind of. I'm just starting that. I'm an avid horsewoman, which I use in some of my leadership programs through National Horsemanship. I also read, watch a ton of movies, camp, ski, so like many things that you all do in the room. So I'd love to get to know just a little bit about you, specifically around, we have a few people in here that, in terms of their business, I'm curious what level your business is at. So if you could tell me, you guys all introduce yourself. By just a show of hands, I'm curious, how many of you have a business that, in terms of gross revenue, is making $100,000 or less right now? Great. What about between $100,000 and $300,000 in revenue? Great. Anybody higher than that? Great. To $1 million, $500,000?
650.
Great. Cool. So the reason I ask this question is because as we go through, I'm going to kind of tailor to the room a little bit so that we can see how we're going to, if you're interested, scale up. Because that's what we're really talking about today, is how to scale up your business from starting as the solo entrepreneur forward, okay? So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to learn today. We're going to learn, so I want to apologize if the title threw anybody off, okay? We'll talk about why that title is what it is, and it certainly wasn't my intention to confuse anybody with that title today. So today we'll learn where the plateaus are in growing your business and how to navigate the valley so your business can grow. We're going to talk about the barriers to growing your business at each level, and then how to step into your role as a leader in your company, as that CEO, so that you can make decisions that support that growth, and then actionable steps that you have to take each week to continue moving your business forward. Okay. So why is this important? Well, so in terms of business, there are 28 million companies out there, okay? So in terms of small businesses, which are categorized as 500 employees or less, just to give you a sample of what that feels like in the market, of the 28, 99.7 fall into that category of small business, okay? Out of that number, 52% are home-based businesses. So you're talking about most businesses are right at that million or less place, okay? And out of most of the businesses in the private sector, 75.3% of those businesses have 1 to 9 employees, and they hire that 75% out of the marketplace, okay? So small businesses and home-based businesses have a really big area that they dominate in the marketplace, as you can tell from this. So the reason we call it valleys of death, okay? So as businesses grow, you can see 96% of businesses are at $1 million or less, okay? Once you hit $1 million, many companies get stuck because they don't have what they need to go to the next level of development. And that is called a valley of death, because that is where businesses, frankly, go out of business, right? That's where they die. Then we see 4% make it past $1 million mark, 0.4% at the 10 million and above mark, and just 17,000 are at 50 million and above. But as you can see, in terms of the businesses, there are valleys within each of these different business models, okay? So in order to actually build sustainable businesses, you have to be able to leap over these with the right skills and the right planning. So that's what we're going to talk a bit about today. This is the big higher level view right now, and then we'll get down into some of the more, some of the things that will directly apply to you all, okay? So what we know is if 50% within the first 5 years, so how many people have been in business 5 years? Congratulations. At 5 years, 50% of businesses either survive or they go away. So the 50% that are no longer in business are not in business any longer because most of them don't have enough cash. And by most, I mean 80%. They don't have enough cash to make the business go. And what that means is they may not have enough cash on hand, or the timing of the cash is not coming in that it can support the growth of the business. So that's right around the 5-year mark is a pretty big litmus test for a business, okay? So given that that's the reality for many businesses, I'm really interested in helping them navigate past that point so they can continue to grow in a sustainable way. The reason this is important to me personally is I grew up in a family business. At 12 years old, we were talking a little bit about that in terms of you get recruited to be in the family business or in other businesses. At 12 years old, that was my age to be recruited into my family's business. We made clear wood finishing and additives for paint, okay? My great-grandfather started the business. My grandfather took it over, and by the time I got into the business at 12 years old, my dad and my uncle were leading the company, okay? So I was being groomed into that company, okay? My dad was the COO, my uncle was the CEO, okay? So I watched them through college. The business took off, they hit the $30 million mark, they made sure that it scaled the right way, but then they hit a wall. And they had to decide They're gonna try and scale again. My dad said, I'm kind of done. I'm exhausted. So he stepped out of the company. My uncle decided to take it. He lasted 3 years before he sold it for $30 million. And he sold it because he had no idea how to make the next leap to scale. So I watched this, knowing that I had frankly lost my family's birthright because it was sold to an international company. And I became interested on how to help other companies survive if that's what they wanted to do. So I started going into companies and helping from an executive perspective to help them grow, okay? So that's where I've come through with some of this information. It's because I had a personal interest in seeing other companies thrive. So let's just talk about from a larger scale, what this looks like. So most of the folks in the room, they're at the start of actually everybody at this point is in the startup place. So $1 million and below, the focus of those businesses really is about generating as much revenue as possible, okay? Because what you're trying to determine is, does a market exist for my business? Right? That's all you're trying to determine, and you're trying to show that through revenue. Once you hit $1 million, from 1 million to 10 million, the focus shifts, and it changes to cash. Because you need cash if you're going to then scale a business up. Now, what's great about this is it doesn't all have to come from a lot of revenue generation in your business. Where it can come from is investors who are friends and family. It can come from venture capitalists, angel investors that help give an infusion in cash. It can be loans, it can be different types of capital. But the important thing is you want to have some liquidity so that if you're ready to scale your business past the $1 million mark, you have cash to make it happen. Now it'll make more sense as we talk a little bit about how you can actually do that. Then businesses jump into the $10 to $25 million range. The focus here is really focusing on gross margins. So what that means is you have to maintain that clear value proposition in the market. So that means your clients know your products, they know why you excel with your products, and they know why you're different than your competitors, okay? And then during this range, the $10 million to $25 million range, you're also trying to streamline everything, because the point here is you're making the most amount of money possible from your products and services. So you're trying to get the expenses as low as possible and the price point for your products and services as high as possible, okay? So that you're making the most amount of margin possible. And then lastly, getting up to 50 million and above, you're really looking at predictable products, profits. You know that because you've already looked at how to make your products as profitable as possible, you know that it's a wash, rinse, and repeat model. But then you have to do that in an unpredictable world landscape. So for instance, I'm gonna kind of rip something from the headlines right now. So our president came out, I think last week, and said, hey, I think a really good way to handle the crisis in schools is to arm our teachers. Now, regardless of how you feel about that politically, what that means, all of a sudden we're in an unpredictable place, right? So during the Obama administration, there was a huge demand for guns because people were worried. They were worried that they were gonna be taken away from them. So they stockpiled a lot of weapons because they were scared that the laws were gonna change. When Trump came in, they're like, we're good. He is a man of the Second Amendment. We are good. So they stopped buying. That means gun manufacturers slowed down their production and the sales tapered off. Now, when the president says, let's arm teachers, they then have to decide, should we ramp up production again? Because handguns may be something that we're really looking forward to bringing into schools long term, right? So can they predictably move up their production at the same time as navigating the unpredictability of our current leader? It's a question, right? So let's take it down a notch in terms of where most of the folks are in this room, okay? So this is really that first stage, the revenue startup focus phase, right? We start off as solopreneurs. We move to a small, probably still home-based business or mobile business, and then we start becoming more efficient as a business, okay? I'm going to walk you through each of these so that you guys know then how you could do this, depending upon where you are. So let me just get a show of hands. How many people right now are a solo entrepreneur? Meaning you don't have any actual employees as part of, okay. You can have contracted services. And do you have 3 or more employees?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Cool. Are you more than 12?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm right in the sweet spot then for this group. Perfect. So let's talk a little bit about the first group. So my solopreneurs. Just so you know, there's a formula. There's a formula for small business that looks like for each person you have in the business as an employee and as a solopreneur, count yourself as that role. You make average of $100,000 for each one of those people, okay? So if you'll notice for this one, there's a range of 50K to 150K for the solopreneur. It depends on what kind of services or products that you're actually putting out there in terms of what that average looks like. If you have a really time-heavy, time for dollar model, you're going to be at the lower end of this because you're trying to book clients in a 1-for-1 ratio and run your business at the same time. If you have more group programs or you have more of a product-based model, then you're going to be more at the higher end. And some people can blow this out to about 200, but it really depends on what your business model looks like, okay? So again, for the focus for this range, revenue. Make as much money as you can and test the market quickly to make sure that they actually want your products and services. Participate in high return, high energy, low time marketing activities, okay? And I just want to say as an aside, for those who are interested, you can get the slides, so you don't have to take crazy notes right now. Just know that you can give me your information and I will send you the slides, okay? Because there's a lot of information. So in terms of, a lot of us when we start our business, people are like, go do marketing, go do networking, go speak, go do these things, and nothing against, I love Boost, I'm here regularly, but not everybody loves all of those activities, right? So how many people love networking? Yes, great. So that may be a really good marketing activity for you because it fills you up, right? It's a high energy activity where you can go out and meet people and it makes you excited to do it, right? And so you're willing to go out there and get in front of lots of people. For other people, networking is the biggest drain on their life, right? They don't know how to, they don't know how to sell their company and they're really nervous about meeting people. That is not a high return, high energy, low time activity for those folks. I choose speaking as one of my marketing because I can get in front of larger groups. I can get a high trust and people see me from that I'm believable, that I have, that I'm trustworthy, and that I know my stuff right away. So that's helpful. So in terms of my time and my energy, and I like speaking, so that makes it easier, right? Then that's a lower time for me to do that activity. So pick the one that's best for you. You can do webinars, you can do speaking, networking. Some people love Facebook ads, which is a high money activity, but pick the one that makes sense for you that you actually enjoy in the beginning, okay? And then you gotta deliver. For everything you sell, you gotta deliver those products and services, right? So those are the main focus points at this stage of a company. Now, some skills you'll wanna grow into are you're going to wanna get to know your market. That means you actually have to talk to your clients, right? Talk to your potential customers, right? Figure out what they want, figure out if the products are working for them, if the services are working for them, and if not, what else do they want and need? You would be shocked at how many people don't do this. You're also going to want to talk to your advisors, right? Your mentors. You're going to want to talk to potential employees and tell them what you're doing. You're getting to know how your company fits into the market at this point. You're going to want to learn how to delegate. So how many people have service providers that they engage outside, the contractors, or, great? So this is a great way to learn how to delegate, right? You can maybe doing your books is not something that you love, so you go ahead and you ask somebody to be your bookkeeper and you pay them for that time, right? That's how you can learn in the beginning to delegate. A lot of people actually use a VA in this way with their business. They might contract a VA to do some administrative work. That's another great way to figure out how do you start sharing responsibilities with other people. And largely, start building yourself as a leader, because if you're going to scale your business, it's going to be important that you actually know how to set the tone and vision for that business. And as a solopreneur, you have less people looking at you, trying to figure that out at this point. So take the time to learn. Any questions at this point? So, the skills to develop. Number one, always be the dumbest person in the room, okay? And that means, for most of us who are building a business, we're doing lots of things as a generalist that's not our sweet spot in terms of our skill set. Now, there is something that is our sweet spot, but we're always trying to up-level that too. So we need to be around people that are smarter than us, that can teach us a lot so we can grow into that space, okay? Ask the right questions all the time. So don't become the fix-it person, become the question person, and tap all the amazing resources that are in your community. That's what's amazing about a place like Boost, right? You're meeting tons of people in different locations, so you get a wide variety of people with different skill sets. You can really touch with those people to see if, who is an advisor in marketing in the room, in financial advising services, kind of, who knows how to really build their employees. Use these opportunities to help and ask the right questions so you know then how to deliver that in your own company. Know what you do well and know what you don't do well. Right now, solopreneurs, a lot of people are doing everything and then they're not really sure what they do well and what they don't. Then the last is delegate. So we're going to do a quick exercise because I think this will be helpful. So at your chairs is a plain white piece of paper. I'd love it if you all fold it in 3 sections. Okay, so take it sideways and fold it in 3. At the top of the column on the left, and you can do this from your computer at home too, just find a piece of paper that's a scrap piece of paper and fold it into 3. So at the left column here, I want you to write down, and I'm just going to give you 2 minutes and I'll give you some ideas, but finish this list at home. I want you to write everything you do for your business right now. So if you do events and you buy all the groceries for those events, and you also get the sponsors for that event, and you also acquire the location for the event, write down all of those things. If you are doing your own bookkeeping, write that down. You do your own hiring, whether it's contract, service providers or not, write that down. You do all your own administrative support. If you do all your own website design and content, if you do all your email marketing, make all your phone calls, return all your messages, do all your calendaring, put everything you can think of in that column. build your own curriculums, if you reach out for sales, if you follow up on sales, if you do your own newsletters. I'm trying to think of all the nitty and gritty. If you're interviewing your own employees at every single stage of the interview process. If you're posting your own jobs, your own open jobs. So in the second column, what I want you to do is look through that first column, and don't worry if you don't have it all, really spend some time doing this. It's going to be telling for you, okay? In the second column, I want you to look through that first column and see what you actually like in that first column. And the things that you like, circle it and put an arrow to that middle column. Be good at them and not necessarily like them, and put them over there too if you wish. And then in the last column, you look at the things that moved over to that middle column, and you say, out of these few things, what do I actually love doing? And you move it to that last column. And this one I actually mean love. Like, you could spend some serious time and get lost because it's so amazing. Just feeds you each and every day. So what you have now, when you complete this, is a roadmap for how you start delegating. It's a crude one, but it's a great one. So the things that are left over in that first column, I would rank them based on what you like least to most, and start delegating those things out. When we don't like something, it takes us 5 times longer than it actually takes a professional to do it, and it drains our energy, and our energy is better served, right? So those are people that you're going, as a solopreneur, you're going to want to really start outsourcing. It might be bookkeeping, right? It might be the website, which is just an albatross on your neck. I don't know. But whatever it is that doesn't feed you and that is really hard, start finding, it might be design, just find people to help you with that and start learning how to delegate, okay? What's also helpful in this list is really look at where your weaknesses are, because those are the relationships you're going to want to start developing first. Okay? Any questions about that? Great. Okay, so we were at solopreneur, now we're going to 3 employees. That range starts at 150 and goes up to 300,000. Now, people ask me, why wouldn't I have 2 employees? We talked about this earlier, right? It is cheaper, actually, and more efficient to go straight to 3 than it is to just hire 1. It feels a little uncomfortable, right? Because you have to have enough cash on hand to pay 2 employees. But 2 employees actually is clunky and gets people stuck, okay? Because there's not a natural way that tasks and responsibilities break down with just 2 employees. And so what you find is that you're spending most of your time managing and you're not getting enough return on your employee investment to make the company grow enough. So you want to go from 1 to 3 employees. Your focus here, it's still money, it's still revenue, right? Make money and make sure and make lots of it. And keep testing your products in the marketplace. When you have the 3, you can start delegating those areas of weakness that we just talked about, because those are going to be who your first hires are, okay?
I have a question. If you're looking at 3 people but you're looking at your list, does it make, maybe it's not a canned answer for this, does it make more sense to have, like, say, 3 people that are part-time that do very different things, or fewer people that can do a lot of things? Do you know what I'm asking?
I do know what you're asking, and that depends on you as a manager and as a leader and what you think you can handle. It's ideal that you're getting people in their sweet spot of their skill set, and that's how you're building your business, but that's not always what you can find. And there may be some people that have strengths in specific areas that can marry a couple, but it really depends on, it's way harder to manage 2 part-time than 1 full-time in terms of a relational development and in terms of communication. So that's something to consider as you're looking. Okay? And then again, you're still delivering products and services. Did you?
You know, that leads me to the gig society concept, where you hire people per project.
Yes, which is,
So, yeah.
yes. So that's a great model. So as a solopreneur or as you're going into the 3 people model, right, you can always contract out services and have what's called a bench, right? Where you're bringing in specific people that are helping you on projects and you're building in their cost into the project amount. They're not employees, right? Because their expenses are directly built into the project, but they are people to help you in areas that are not your area of specialty. Okay? And that's a great way to scale and get some bigger numbers when you're not ready to actually hire on W-2 employees.
You had said that it's more difficult to manage 2 part-time people versus 1 full-time person. So where does that correlate to the 3 employee part? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do. It's a decision that you're making in your business. So for instance, when you have 3 full-time people, their investment is different in your business, right? Their time is different, and you are, as you'll see, we'll go there to this side now. You're starting to develop your communication processes, right? Because there's a different style of communication that has to happen with 3 people than 1 person, right? And even with 2 people. With 2 people, you're communicating, you're taking one idea and communicating it to the other person, they're communicating it back. So there's just this one loop. When you take 3 people, right, you're talking about it's 6 times harder, because the communication can go in different directions and you have to make sure everybody's on the same page. And that's why I say that's a difference. Did that answer your question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So those 3 people, you're one of them?
Yes.
Okay, that's
Yes.
close there, okay.
Yes, you are always, and you should always be paying yourself.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what,
As
right,
an
yeah,
employee,
I didn't
yeah.
mean I didn't know if you meant
But thanks, that's a
hiring 3
perfect-
or something.
yeah.
2 plus yourself.
Perfect clarifying question. So, skills to build when you have the 3. Start predicting your market, not just knowing it, but starting to predict where it's coming. So, Lori, you were talking about story, right? Using story. That's really the buzz thing right now in terms of marketing, right? Like all the companies saying the story. So then the question is, where's the edge of where is it going? The story is now, but where is it going, right? So knowing that, and you don't have to be crazy ahead of the market. You just have to be on the, like, a little bit ahead of it, right? So that you're not reacting to it. You develop communication processes so that everybody can be on the same page. And you are starting to develop and review your mission and values, okay? This is something that you should always be reviewing. And many people that have a company that's larger than this can't tell me their values when I ask. So I want you to, if you're starting to think about this when you're a solopreneur, that's ideal. But at the 3 employee stage, if you're gonna start leading people, you have to actually know where you're leading them. So you have to know what the mission of the company is, where you're going, and what values are really driving that culture and ethos. So we already talked about the first 4 leaders to develop, skills to develop. Then the last year, predicting the market, getting really tight with that, and then walking and communicating your mission and values all the time. So not just to your employees, but to your clients, to your customers, to your advisors, so that you know your company inside and out, and so do they. Then the last one we're going to talk about today, it's really scaling up to the $300 to $1 million mark. So this is ideally between 8 and 12 employees. So you see why cash starts becoming important, because if you're making a leap from 3 employees to 8, which is the ideal size, on the low end, you're going to need some cash to make that happen, okay? And this is where it starts becoming much more complex. So the focus of the leader in a company from 8 to 12 is really you're leading and you're developing your people, you're setting strategy, you're driving execution, you're managing the cash, and to do this, you're also hiring an assistant manager. And we're going to go into these things so that you know what those all pertain, what that all means. And then skills to build to get to this 8 to 12 employee range is you have to know and plan to delegate your strengths. Before you were delegating your weaknesses, now you're delegating your strengths. Because part of what you do every day is you're a leader, right? And so you're not going to be able to spend as much time delivering on the area of strengths, right? So if you do photography and videography, you're going to have to hire somebody else that's omitting you so that 50% of the work can go to that person. You're going to start recruiting and building leaders, because in order to scale up past 8 to 12 people, you need other leaders that can help you. You can't be the only person. And lastly, you're starting to build processes and procedures. So again, you're keeping everybody on the same page. They have an onboarding process when they actually step into your company. They know the mission and values. They know the plan, so that people can start falling in line more quickly, so you can get everybody pointed in the same direction. Any questions? So here are the barriers to scaling. Number one is leadership, right? I just started talking about it. So the barrier here is the inability for the staff, the inability to staff and to grow leaders is often a barrier for companies. And it's not just leaders, but they have to be capable of predicting the market and delegating, okay? So it's building that specific type of leadership staff. Scalable infrastructure. So in this area, again, not having the right systems and structures in place, whether that's the right space, the right organizational procedures, to handle the complexities that happen in communication when you're talking about 8 to 12 employees and above. Are you having one-on-one meetings? Are you having group meetings? How are you communicating what's happening in different functions of the company? And lastly is the failure to scale up effective marketing functions. And what that just means is that, are you capable of attracting new customers? You're trying to push the revenue. Are you actually getting in the people to buy the product? Are you able to attract the right kind of staff in the areas that you need them? Do you have the right advisors and the other key relationships to really move your company forward? So this is what you have to master in order to overcome these different scaling barriers. So we talked about it in that 8 to 12 model. You have to be able to lead the people. Right? So this is you as a CEO and your leadership team. You have to be able to set the tone and the direction of the company. That's why the mission and values are so important, because they have to know where they're going and what they're supposed to represent in terms of the company. So first of all, the leader has to be able to lead themselves. It means they have to be able to know what the company stands for, live and breathe the values, and be out there as a leader, and be able to hold that energy, okay? The second is attracting and retaining the right kind of people. So the number one problem I see when people are trying to scale up and they hire the first people, they hire their friends, which may be awesome people, and they may or may not have the right skills, and you have a really complicated relationship because you're already friends with them. Now, some people make it work. Some people work with their spouses, but it's not the best model, because you want to make sure you're getting the right people on the bus to help grow your company quickly, if that's your goal. If you want to stay at 150,000 to 300,000 and you want to do that with a friend, that's totally great, as long as you guys have the right skill sets. And then lastly, establish a handful of rules, repeat them frequently, and act consistently with the rules. So in small teams or small companies, this is a really hard thing that happens. There's different rules for different people depending upon if they're a friend or if you really like them. Somebody might be able to have a flex schedule and work off-site. Somebody else might have to work till midnight on-site because the server went down. So people have to know what rules they're playing by so that there's a sense of fairness, and so that they know what the rules and the boundaries are for the company and how to move forward, not dissimilar to parenting.
What does repeat themselves frequently?
Thank you. That's an error in my slide.
And I'm like,
Well,
I
it's supposed to be
understand.
repeat them, meaning
Okay.
the rules.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. But like actually have rules, right? And repeat them. Thank you. The second one is setting the strategy. So you want to develop a strategy. Make sure you have a strategy. Not everybody does. And develop that strategy based on what really matters to the majority of your clients and customers. That means, again, you need to be in communication and conversation with them to know what's important. And don't just listen to the loudest voice, because then you're going to chase one person's opinion instead of really getting a good sense of what all of your clients need and want. Know what sets you apart from your competitors and use that to build your strategy. And also gather information so you can predict where the market is going, okay? Make sure all of that ends up as part of your strategy. Once you have the strategy, then you drive flawless execution. Okay, so flawless, there's no such thing as perfect, right? But the idea is that you're trying to be as efficient and effective as possible, right? So, handful of priorities. When I say handful, I mean 3 people. I don't mean 10. 5 is like a stretch of too much. And so that means when you're doing your strategic plan, if you have 7 goals, it's too many. You can't keep everybody focused on that many things at one time. And one had better be revenue at this level. Okay, so just a few priorities that you can keep directing people back to. Make sure you're gathering data, quantitative and qualitative, okay? And the important thing there is to review it weekly so that it can keep guiding your decisions as you're moving your strategy forward. And then establishing regular rhythms. So again, this is how are you communicating, how are you meeting with people, and is there a predictable system in place so they know when they're meeting with people, they know when they can communicate to different functions of the company. Because when that predictability is there, companies grow faster. And lastly, manage the cash. So I think you heard a few times, if you're going to scale, cash is really important. It's important generating your gross revenue, and then it's also important to have in terms of trying to find different means of leveraging cash. So in the beginning, make sure you're driving your sales and your revenue so that you're maximizing cash. And then make sure you have different methods of getting cash so that you don't run out. Lines of credit, friends, family, venture capitalists. Just know what your resources are so that when you're ready to make a move, you have resources available. So now it comes down to you and what your next actions are. Threw a ton of information out at you. Yes? 5 minutes, perfect. So now you get to determine where you are now and where is it you want to go. So if you're just in the gerbil wheel of the business and you're not focused on where you want to go, you certainly can't get there. So my hope for you is that this will stimulate some real thinking on your part as to where you want to go with your business. Then focus until you hit that $1 million mark on driving sales and revenue. And lastly, learn how to delegate so that you're ready to scale. Okay? So my gifts to you, as I mentioned before, a copy, and I'll pass these around, is a copy of the presentation. For those of you who have businesses or friends have businesses, and want to, that's when the clicker in hand and you're trying to juggle too much. Thank you. So if you want, and this is of course true for our friends online as well, if you guys want a copy of the presentation, give me your name and your email. I'm also offering a complimentary business breakthrough session where we can just talk about where you are now, where you want to go, and some next steps on how you can get there. We'll also talk about if I can be of help or not help, but what resources can get you to that next step, okay? And then finally, if you want invitations to events or any ongoing tips and tools, by all means, give me your name and I'm happy to share that with you. So at this point, I'd love to take any further questions if anybody has any. It's great, we kind of peppered those throughout, but if there's any other questions?
You know, what are your thoughts regarding people that are happy with their revenue, but they just want to make it in a fraction of the time? In other words, part-time, or to
Meaning
hire
that
yeah.
they're 40 hours, let's
Exactly.
pretend they're 60 hours in their business now and they're making $150,000.
Right.
And they want to do maybe half that time, 30 hours a week, and they want to maintain 150.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we can look at, there's a lot of ways to get there in terms of improving processes and procedures within the company, where it's really, we're looking at kind of further up, it talked about the gross margins, right? So you're looking at how much can you get for the services you provide now that you have an established market, and how can you reduce cost. So that might mean bringing in somebody half-time that can do some of the things you do that is less money, right? So it would really depend on the company and the person and what their skill sets are in the blend, but that's absolutely something that with some planning you can make happen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions?
Well, I have one. Oh, go ahead.
Mine was just when you're talking about, you know, that higher level and 8 to 12, once you're, you know, getting over a certain number of million. I've been trying to kind of study and model some other companies that seem like they're using more technology to replace some of those people. So they may be like a $7 million company,
Yeah.
but they're only operating with 5, and I think they're making up the difference through both contract workers
Yep.
and automation through technology.
Yes.
Do you think one is necessarily better than the other?
I think it depends on what your business is and how you're trying to serve people, right? So I think that's a great question given that, you know, for predictability of market, right? So there's a lot of, you know, they're talking about bringing in computers and robots to do some of the functions that a lot of people are doing. The area that computers cannot take over for you is any soft skills, any people facing, and any areas that really are more emotionally based and the sensitivity based. So it depends on the company, but you certainly can do that, and then your money is just going into some different things. But you're still gonna have to have some leaders in the company at that level to handle those big functions, because you'd have to look at some of those areas and those consultants and have people over them. You're not gonna be able to do it all with, you know, one CEO and 5 staff. That's not gonna work out.
Mine's more of a math problem for you.
Oh, no.
Is there some way to kind of predict how much cash on hand you need to have based on either total revenue or gross margin to really make sure that you succeed through that next valley?
You locked it in there. It depends on your plan. It depends on your plan. So, you know, if somebody wants to really be at 300,000 in terms of growth in the next 2 years, that's going to be one set of cash that you're looking at. How much revenue is coming in? Do you have any extra cash? And then what's the difference, right? If you want to go to 10 million, that's a much different scenario. And so it's going to take a lot more cash. So it really depends on what your plan is, how big you want to grow, and where you are now.
Okay.
And looking at that.
The real question is if you want to go from 300,000 to a million,
Yeah.
is there, based on your gross margin, some expectation that you need to have cash on hand to make sure you can survive through there? Like, is a percentage
great
of
question.
margin, percentage of revenue, percentage of costs?
I haven't seen any, like, standard calculation that works for everybody, honestly.
Okay.
But I will research it and I will send it to you.
Okay.
Okay. When I do it, I actually sit down and we build out the plan for people, because there's a lot of variables that we'll throw in there. You know, the short answer is the more the better, right? Because it gives you the most flexibility. But if you're only bringing in 300,000 and you have to go to $1 million, right? It's also your level of comfort with risk.
Okay.
Okay. And how quickly you want to scale.
I'm gonna hold you
Totally.
to that. So.
Please do. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions for
Questions?
Jennifer?
That was great.
What a pleasure, guys. Thank you
All right,
so much.
let's give her a big round of
Thank
applause. All right, for all you Facebook peeps out there, if you'd like a copy of the presentation, not on me, but on your computer, feel free to comment on here, and Jennifer will reach out to you and send it to you. So if you couldn't fill out the form that I left over there, you can email her and get in touch with her that way as well. So we encourage you to do that. We also encourage you to make it in person so you can come visit with people in the room. And at this point, we're going to give a couple of people a chance to come up to the front and say what their action items are going to be here. So I'm going to pick on a couple of you in a second, but my action item is, I have a couple different businesses, and one of them is I have all kinds of systems and processes almost in place. So I need to put those in place and then really hand those off to the people that need to start using them regularly. So do that training and then delegate it and let them not mess it up on their own.
Learn how not to.
Yeah, learn, yes, all of that. So, Renee, do you want to come up to the front here and share real quick what, if anything, you're going to take action on to take your business to the next level?
Well, I really like the exercise that you gave us to do, which was an extreme eye-opener. Because I've had different businesses between a coffee shop and my financial services business, so it's totally different for, I'm not sure how to make it work for what I'm doing right now, but there were so many things for my coffee shop that I could sit there and see where I could delegate, where I couldn't delegate. So I'm going to go and review that exercise a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah, I saw somebody comment online that the left column, yes, the left column was not nearly big enough for everything they do in their business. So, I had the same problem.
Yeah.
Lori, you want to come up and share something?
Bring my list. So my list is just what you talked about, Paul, and also what Renee mentioned, and that's realizing there's so much stuff in the left-hand column, and I think we know the things that we don't like to do or that we don't want to do, but we don't actually write them down and prioritize them, and the thing of moving the arrows over was really valuable, because when you really have to narrow things down, it makes you see what is the most important, and to get down to those two just made me realize that you have to, that makes a difference in the planning and what leadership skills you have to build to do those things. So that's what I'll be working on, prioritizing those. Thanks.
All right, so I picked on a couple of people. We're going to cut off the Facebook feed here, but we encourage you to show up in person. You can network with all the people in the room, as well as with the presenter and all that afterwards. So whether it's the Tech Center, Westminster, Denver, Corvallis, or San Diego, make sure you get to one of those events, and we will hopefully see you soon.